Welcome. This is For Better and Worth.
The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Erica Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it.
Hey, honey. How you doing?
I'm good. Glad to be back at it once again.
Yes. So we are going to talk today about budget fatigue.
Oh, geez. I'm already tired.
Listen, for real, I ain't going to even trip because I'm not going to sit up here and pretend on all of these episodes that I don't get tired of that stinking budget, okay?
Oh, my God. Like, I sometimes wonder, people who listen, they're like, oh, they're talking about budget, talking about communicating, talking about all these tough things that people don't always want to do.
You think they sick of us, honey? You think?
No, people love us. Come on, people. In the comments, just drop it that. Say you love Chris and Erica.
Hey.
Just make us feel good about ourselves.
Come on.
Because we want we want to see you all win.
That's right. That's what this is all about. But I think it's real. I think we have to talk about how tiring it can be to be consistent with budgeting.
Look, I think I can go back and I can think to when we were on our journey at different points in life. You were on different journeys. We were on a journey to get out of debt. We were on a journey to, save. We've been on a journey to, get the kids moved on through school. And, our house is going to be paid off soon. That'll be like our big final checklist item. And, and just to be honest with people, we could have paid our house off sooner, but we just, we talk about progress over perfection. And I think we've made major strides to, getting there. But sometimes it's like, boy, I just want to do what I want to do.
Yeah, I have had moments as the nerd and the person who most of the time manages that budget where I'm like, dude, I don't feel like it. I looked you in your face. I was like, I don't feel like doing this. And honestly, I think that it does get more challenging to be consistent as time goes on. I promise you, because I teach. Okay, this is confessional. This is confessional. I teach. I tell people to create the budget before the money comes in. I do that. And I know I'm tired when I do the budget a few days after the money has come in. Not that, you spent a whole lot of money or whatever, but I'll look at it and I'll be like, dang, I didn't do this before the end of the month. Because I was tired or I didn't get to it or something came higher up on my priority list of things to do. And so that fatigue let's talk about what the fatigue is, because I feel like that's important too, because it is creating it, it's sticking with it, it's discussing it with your partner, it is adhering to it and making sure that you are tracking your spending, it's ensuring that your goals are on there, that you're paying attention to what's really important. It actually requires...
It's a process. Is what it is.
It has a lot of layers.
Yeah.
And it is required every single month. I do not believe in budgeting on an annual basis where you don't feel like you have to change it when September comes after you created it in January. I do not believe that that's realistic. And so fatigue in the way that I like to look at budgeting can come since you have to do it every single month. Like it literally is clockwork. And so I get it. It's real. I've had it. And, I know that a lot of people get tired of budgeting and they think, I don't want to do this no more.
Well, I'm going to be encouraging from the get-go. So early on in this conversation, I just want to give some people something to be motivated by. I remember my father used to tell me that having the right tool makes any job easy.
Ooh, okay.
And I think about when I've done things around the house or I fix things, because, I like to think I'm a little handy, And I remember when I don't have the right tool, how difficult a job can become.
That's good.
When you don't have the right tool.
That's good.
And if you talk about financial education and literacy and winning at life when it comes to money, there is one tool that makes every job easy,
What is the tool, babe?
and that is having a budget.
Yeah.
It is a fundamental tool that if you don't have, you're going to go off track. And this, you're going to be trying to fix stuff that didn't need to be fixed to begin with.
Yep.
And so while it may become tiring or you may get fatigued, just imagine how difficult
Mm.
it would be if you didn't start with a budget and have a budget and maintain it. So I just wanted to give the people something early on.
That's good. I think that's really good because the truth is, even when I'm tired of doing it, I can't imagine going an entire week of a
Right.
full month
You
having
would
not.
you would be in withdrawal.
I would be like, what have we done? Oh my gosh.
Like
Like,
we'd be then went out and ate out once, and you'd be like, "Oh my God, we are off track. We're off
Yes.
kilter." And I'd be like, "Look, calm down.
yeah.
It's only been a few days."
Right. And the truth, and I appreciate the fact that you're not a stickler, if that makes sense. Like, you're not, okay, it's the first. What are we doing? Yeah, that's not how
Right.
you don't see it that way. And you never have, I don't think. I don't think that was ever the way that you operated, But and because that is the role that I have taken on, is the budgeting person in our relationship. Like,
And I respect that because we both play parts and we
Yeah.
both play a role and we participate in the things that we're excited about. And we just talked about this recently, how we choose to opt out of the things that are not the areas that we want to participate in.
mhm,
I participate in the budget process because we have the meetings and we have budget dates and all of that. But as far as creating them, I let you
yeah.
create it and then we go and we review it together.
So let's talk about that, the process itself. So that's a really good point that you made. Typically, a lot of people are taught to sit down and write a budget. Let's do this together. We're going to do the budget together. And I do not think that is absolutely necessary. I think that whoever is the person who either enjoys numbers or likes to get the satisfaction that job is done.
Or the person that is better at it.
Exactly. Like, that person can start the budget, can create the budget or give framework to it. And then you sit down and have the 15 or 20-minute conversation with your partner. And then, they've done some of the legwork. They've spent 20 or 30 minutes themselves behind the scenes. Or you had a conversation and you kind of know what to include in it. But the physical labor and work of writing it down or putting it together or putting it in a software tool or whatever can be done by one person. Because I really feel like some of the tension and fatigue can come when we're trying to figure out how to do this one task together. So, for instance, we don't need two people to pay the bills. We don't need that, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. We don't need two people to call for service. You know what I mean? One person calls and we make sure that somebody is here to fix the toilet, right? Like, that's just how that goes. So I don't know why budgeting itself.
Or we just call me and I come fix it.
No, I'm glad we don't have no toilets to be fixed right now.
Look,
But I'm
don't
sure
sleep-
you can
look,
handle
don't-
it if
don't
we
sleep
did.
on my skills.
I'm
'cause
saying, let me
look,
finish, okay? I'm sure you
let me
can
tell
handle
the
it.
people out there I fix stuff.
You do,
Just
okay?
because I know.
Lord Jesus, we done gone here. Anywho, but I feel like, the process can begin with one person and culminate with the two parties and then execute it. Like, I will ensure that the auto pays are set up right, and I'll make
Mhm.
sure that, if we need to make some adjustments here and there, that I'll get that done. And if there's one thing, usually I like to say there's one or two things we focus on for the month. And we discuss those things. What are our big picture goals? What is it we're trying to accomplish? Or how much is going into savings? Or what are we doing for vacation or whatever? And we talk about those big picture things. But the minutia of somebody went to Starbucks for $4, we're not discussing that.
Look, as you're talking about this, and we're talking about, just the fatigue that can come from being consistent and on top of it and aware of it all the times, there are ebbs and flows. Like, there's times when somebody doesn't want to deal with this and the other person can step in, and vice versa. But I started thinking about this. We're going to have to talk about this on a future episode because think about like when you talk about money and relationships and the stress that money or the lack of it or the need to budget and talk about all these difficult things and be on top of it, that can bring a lot of stress to a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But think about what it does and what it creates when you remove those stressors.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a budget and you guys are talking about it, you found your cadence. Think about, and I think about us, how it has been helpful in how we're able to connect outside of talking about money,
Mm-hmm.
talking about budgeting. It makes you look good. It makes me look good.
Hey.
And it's like we focus on each other, opposed to, man, I told her stop using that credit card.
Right.
Or, man, the car broke down again. And when you get things like moving, it can be such a benefit to your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like having things hovering over your head and you haven't planned for it or you haven't been diligent to address things. And then when you try to, late night come together and connect, it's like, it's not boom chicka wow wow. It's like womp womp womp.
Oh, well, Lord have mercy.
We gonna have to talk about that because people might not want to do it, but you put tokens in the love bank.
Yeah.
And people may not tie the two together, but money and your honey are highly related.
Yes. Or the late night honey. Hey,
Look,
come on now.
Look, this is for grown-ups.
That's right.
People that are married in relationships. You know what we're talking about.
So that's a really good point because I do think, I'll be honest, I think if I'm looking back, like us talking about money helped us to talk about other stuff. It helped us to discuss a lot of things. And we started talking about money before we got married. And that set a stage for us to make certain other conversations a little easier. And honestly, I think it helped us to figure out how to better communicate. So not just communicate, but how to better communicate. And I feel like that's still a work in progress. I think that we do that on a regular basis, where we're trying to figure out what is the best way to say what needs to be said and or how do I listen more intently and those kinds of things. And when it concerns...
You want to people tiptoe around issues.
Yeah.
Or they want to sweep it under the rug because, like you were talking about, they didn't create that effective communication. But money conversations really it sets the ground and it sets the stage to open the door to talk about other things.
Yeah. So how do we make budgeting easier? What do you think would make that process easier for people to get through so that they don't get so tired?
I think, just keep it simple. You don't need like this, 20-page Excel document. You can have a notebook or you can have Excel or whatever it is, whatever tool you want to use, just have it listed, all the money that's coming in, all the expenses that are going out, and make sure they match up and equal zero.
Mm-hmm.
And include everything: savings, investing, giving, haircuts, getting your hair, nails done. Include everything. So just make it simple. Don't overcomplicate the budget.
And I think that one of the ways that we can make it simple, logistically, when I'm in Excel, I just copy the last month's budget into a new name and change and update it for the current month so that I'm not redoing it every single time. I think a lot of fintech tools, just financial technology tools can help as well. I know a lot of people are struggling because Mint is going away. And, but I think that budgeting tools make it easier. And honestly, I remember one of the first times this was a long time ago, I had a client who, I introduced them to a tool and they were like, oh my gosh, I love this.
Yeah.
So they weren't money nerds by any stretch, but they were like, having this tool makes it easier to see, makes it pretty on the screen. You can put it on your phone, that kind of stuff. And I also think, we need to just simplify, like you were saying, like have certain buckets. I don't think we need to have a budget that includes all of the minutia, like I mentioned, Starbucks for $4. I think you can have a category for dining out and include all of the dining
Right,
out. You know
right.
what I mean?
Anything that's happening outside of the house.
Right, and if you don't have kids, well, you don't need to have a whole section for kids on your budget. You need to just have entertainment and whatever else. But I think that we get so far into the weeds when we think about budgeting that we complicate it more than is
Yeah.
necessary.
I remember when we were using Microsoft Money. Remember that?
Oh my gosh. We did that for a long time.
Right. And then
Like
like
10
Mint,
years.
yeah, like Mint's going away. Microsoft Money just went away.
Totally did.
And so when we talk about, switching from one tool to another, people, we've been there. And we went to, Quicken then, and it was like, man, it was like redoing it and trying to find old stuff, old records, but we made it through it, and we have been effective at doing it and continuing to do it long term. And I think some of the challenges when it comes to people getting worn out, and I touched on it, and I'm a reiterate, like, know what you're good at, and don't be prideful. Like, I know you do the budget, and I could do the budget as well, but I'm like, that's cool. You go ahead and do it. And we've agreed to automate a lot of processes because it makes it easy for you. It makes it easy for me.
Specifically, the bills being on auto pay.
Right, right. And now we're not like writing checks like we used to do, all back in the day. We write checks to, pay our bills and, put stamps on envelope. That
Literally.
seems like so yesteryear.
It seems you saying that is like archaic. I'm
Right.
like, oh my God.
It's like, I hope people don't still do that, but
It's funny when you come to me, you're like, I need a stamp. I'm like, you need a stamp? Like, okay.
People still mail things.
I know, but it's funny because the truth is, if you think about it, I'm curious on how many people actually keep stamps in their house
Right.
nowadays, right? Because
Right.
you can even mail a check from your bank.
Yeah, and you don't need a
bill,
stamp.
and
Right.
you don't
It's
need the stamp.
crazy.
It's just so funny how like stuff has evolved. I'm curious how this gonna be in 20, 30 years.
And I just think, like, going back to the challenge is like knowing what you're good at and kind of stay in your lane, respect your partner, let them do their thing. But when someone is like just tired of it, take it off their plate for a minute,
Woo. Yes.
or maybe even just role reverse. Say, look, you know what? I'll do this thing that you're tired of for, next couple of months. And then you do what I've been doing in, the responsibility assignment. And then it gives somebody a different perspective, a different point of view. And it helps it helps the relationship because, I've removed a stress point from you, and I can provide new perspective and a new point of view because maybe I see something differently than you do. And so I just say, that's one way to try and remove some of those challenges. Just do a quick role reversal.
That's good. That's a really good idea. And honestly, I think that the point you made about them understanding what the other person goes through and adding a new, perspective to the conversation is so good. That's so good. Um, so do you think we'll budget forever?
I honestly do because I think we are at a point in our lives and our journey where we could be freer and not budget, but like we budget everything. It's just a habit now. Like we think long term about projects. We've been doing renovations and remodeling in our home, and we don't take like big purchases lightly. And so we like, people probably think we're crazy because we got a budget spreadsheet, but then we got everything, all the extras. We will count the costs of what we're going to do. If it's a remodel project, we will budget it and say, we're going to lay it out. This is what we're going to spend money on.
We had a whole remodel budget. Like literally, we had 20 or 30 things listed individually.
Yep.
And the amounts for each one of them so that we can see the total amount and make sure we were okay with it. And then if needed adjustments, we would do those as well. And so it's like when we talk about budgeting, like we do that thing.
Look, it's all those project managers out there. They know
Yeah.
that's a project planner.
It is. It is.
Because if you are on a project and you're over in this area, you better come back and be under in another area to stay on target overall.
Right.
And that's how budgets work. And even when we're thinking about, the renovation budget was up, well, we went over here, so we got to be under here, or we have to commit to go to the reserve that we may have held aside for overages. Then we got to pull that up. So when you ask me if I think we'll be budgeters long term, I would say yes, because what we put money towards just changes.
And that's the whole thing. So I think a lot of people could feel like, oh my God, this is a lifelong sentence. And all I can hear in the background is clank, clank. Like, we're in this forever. This is like, oh my God, this feels like, being restricted for the rest of our life. And I see it as I'm married to you forever. And we want to enjoy life together. And so we need to plan it. And this is a way we do that. Now, am I all excited about budgeting for the rest of my life? Well, not exactly. You know what I mean?
Well, let me change the thought process.
Let's do that.
Because when we talk about budgeting, it's totally different when you're today, trying to budget so you can pay your debt down.
Yes.
Or you're trying to budget so you can build your savings, or you're trying to budget because you want to buy something, you want to buy another car.
You have a purpose.
Right. Or you're trying to budget so you can free money up to invest for retirement. And people have to remember that when you budget, you're going through phases in life. And as your phase in life changes, so does your budget change.
That's right.
And just think about when you go from trying to get out of debt, build savings, get kids through school and all of those things, to now the kids are out of the house. They're out of college. You're out of debt. You have your 6 to 12 month, emergency fund. And now you're free to do some of those things that maybe you couldn't do before. Now you're budgeting like, okay, we're going to buy a new car. Okay, how much are we willing to spend on a car? And where is that going to come from? How much are we going to spend on a vacation? Are we going to increase what we spend on clothing, the type of clothing we buy? I think that can change your whole mentality, because that's when it becomes fun.
Right. I was going to say it probably is a more fun perspective on budgeting when you get to that place. And I think, too, a lot of people, I've heard this even from experts, that, well, you give some, you take care of your taxes, you give some, you save some.
And enjoy the rest.
And now that can be a way to look at it, right? You intentionally make it automatic that Uncle Sam gets his, that God gets his, and that you save yours for yourself. Make those things automatic, right? Just don't miss out on those. And then the rest you get to enjoy. The only challenge that I would say in doing that is, how do you know you're even reaching some of the other goals that you have that don't include those things at the top, right? Like, how do you know when is the right time to buy the car? Are you setting dollars? I feel like there are things about the rest of it that needs discussion, which is why I think a detailed budget still is needed. But I think a lot of people feel that way, and they've taken this hands-off approach to budgeting so that they can just spend what they want.
Yeah.
And you can still get out of control with that.
Because
frankly, I've seen people, this is an extreme, right? They do those things at the top and still get to the place where they've spent all of their dollars,
Right.
everything, right? And so is that wise, right? Like, if you're not paying attention to what you're doing with all of the dollars, is it wise to make those choices?
Look, and we know people that, their situations aren't where they have a bunch of debt. They're not trying to get out of debt. They're further along, but, they still put money into a car fund every month.
Yeah.
They act as though they're making a car payment every month and all they're doing is saving. And if they didn't budget that in, they like, well, we were already spending it, so let's just keep budgeting that. And then they just let that money accrue. Let it accrue. And people think, well, how can I pay cash for a car? Okay, save the car payment you've been making, save that for 36 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but it's still just part of the budget.
It creates discipline. And
Yes.
it requires discipline that I think is kind of hard for a lot of people. So, I mean, what would you say to someone who feels like they've been working at this budget thing and they're still not good at it?
If somebody has been budgeting and they just still aren't good at it, I would say ask for help. You know, be it ask a friend who's good at it, go to a parent who, is good at it, no matter your age, If you need a professional, ask your accountant about it, or your financial planner, or a coach like yourself.
Woo-woo.
I think there's a lot of things out there that can help you budget. And I laugh because I always talk about I say YouTube is the greatest teacher out there, and I teach myself a lot of stuff from YouTube because it's funny when I'm looking for something like on YouTube, I type in exactly what I'm thinking and videos come up.
That's right, because somebody else typed in exactly what you were thinking too.
Right.
Okay.
And they put the video out there
Yep.
under the title that I was thinking
Right.
anyway.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of help that's available.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point I'm getting at, is that if you aren't good at it, there's a lot of help and a lot of tools. There's a lot of organizations. You can go to your bank, or your credit union. They have programs. They have a lot of things that can help. So I would say don't make an excuse. Well, I'm not good at this, so I'm not going to budget. Well, find somebody who is.
And
find something that is to help you, and you do it.
And I think, what you want ought to be a big enough motivation. Your why, your big picture goal, your vision, where you want to see yourself financially ought to be big enough and important enough to you that you're willing to do a little extra work to make sure that you do get better at it. And I also think you have to kind of redefine what good at it is. Because honestly, I think that you have to figure out how to make it work for you versus feeling like you have to be a pro. Like, and with budgeting, you always say this, and so I'm going to repeat it again. It's progress over perfection. You'll never be perfect at budgeting. The budget will never be exactly as, life turns out.
Life starts lifing.
It does. And that's why I think one of the biggest things that has been helpful for me is to keep some cushion in the budget. Always have some miscellaneous money, a little bit of slush money, because good doesn't mean that you didn't overspend on a specific area at all. I think being good at budgeting means that you created a game plan, you followed it, you pivoted if necessary, and you're using it again. You're using it to get to a specific goal or purpose with your money. And you're being consistent, and it's helping you, like you said at the very beginning, as a tool.
Yep.
And we're not looking for it to be a perfect journey over 30 days or 31 days. We're looking for it to actually just simply be a journey that you are consistent with, that you will revisit on a routine basis.
So before we get to the make it worth it, I'm about to open Pandora's box up. And
Lord.
We're going to open it up, and we're going to try and fold it back up real quick.
Oh, I don't know if that's going to work. What is this, babe? Where you going?
We're talking about budget and budget fatigue, but what if one spouse wants to budget and the other doesn't want to budget? That is like, it's like the Jack in the Box. Once it jumps out trying to put it
that could be
back in the box, is like, uh-oh.
Yeah, that could be a whole episode all by itself. But I will tell you this. If I'm going to do a caveat to that question. If one person wants to adhere to the budget and the other person doesn't want to adhere to it. Because I still believe, both parties don't have to create it.
Yeah.
But if one party is like, screw this budget, I don't feel like doing this junk.
I want to do what I want to do.
Right. Like, that's a problem. And I think
one person's like, let me be great.
Yeah. I have to be me. I don't do it as good as you, babe. You are really great with your songs.
I didn't know when we started podcasting we'd
Impressions.
be impressionists, but
Yes, you're good at that. But you're not fancying me today. You're not like you're not
I'm
doing
not
it.
entertaining your
I
impressionist
know.
request today.
Why?
I
Oh
don't
my
know.
gosh.
I'm
Uh,
serious today,
I
people.
don't need you to be serious. I need you to be you.
all I would say, all I would say is if one person is on and the other person doesn't want to adhere,
Yeah.
there's two things. Don't be the person who sabotages, your whole situation.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sticking to a budget. Okay, you're a saboteur.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how we deal with saboteurs. We have to get rid of them.
Right.
And you don't want to be, like, the law to come down on you or your partner to be angry and create all this frustration that you don't want, unlike what I talked about previously in, this episode. It's not going to create love tokens and
Right.
it's not going to, help with the boom chicka wow wow. But I would say create some margin in the budget. Like if one person doesn't want a budget and you are committed to it and you're making the budget, leave some margin for error.
Yeah.
Because if they go over that margin that you have, that cushion, you said it, having that cushion is going to help keep you guys on track.
Mm-hmm. And I think to ask your partner what is their reservation? What is their hesitation? Where does that come from? Help me understand. Those kind of questions are good. And find out what pushes their button.
Mhm.
So
It
sometimes
sounds wait. It sounds like you're getting into to make it worth it.
but if one spouse doesn't want a budget and the other does, I think you need to make sure you know what is important
What
to them.
excites them?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people have this misconception about budgeting that they're not going to get what they want, that they won't be able to
Mhm.
live their best life.
It's
that-
all sacrifice.
Yeah, like, okay, well, I'm never going to be able to golf, or I can't go shopping, or we're never going to be able to dine out. If I say yes to this budget, then I'm saying no to myself. And I think we have to dispel that by making sure that the need of the person who has some reluctance is not overlooked. And they need to be able to vocalize what it is
Right.
that potentially is missing for them or the concern that they have, so that it can be resolved. And if it is as simple as I want to make sure that I can golf, well, let's think about how much that is and make sure that that's in the budget.
When put in its proper context and proper place, all this stuff can fit in. So
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like people think that they're going to have to say no to everything all the time. And I'm like, well, maybe you can't golf every week, but you can golf once a month. So you're not saying no entirely. Or maybe you can't dine out every other day, but you can definitely do it once
and that's
a
part
week.
of the sacrifice, in working the plan until your phase that you're in changes.
Yeah.
And so, let's get in this make it worth it. And I think when I talk about the make it worth it, the thing that continues to come first and foremost to my mind when it relates to budget fatigue is be willing to do that role reversal. So I'm going to bring that back because I really think that can help eliminate, budget fatigue is just role reversal. Let's just try something different. If you created it, let the other person create it for a while and just use the template, and work from there. And then just change those responsibilities around because that may just be the break that someone needs to get to that point where they can reset and say, okay, I'm good now. I can resume those responsibilities. And then you switch those roles back. So for me, make it worth it. Just be willing to do that. But what would you say would be a make it worth it that you want people to take away from this?
I think that you need to make it your own. And that will ensure that both parties are included, that you have made it easy enough for yourself. Like you have a routine that
You mean
makes
the actual budget?
the absolute budget, yes. And make sure that you figured out what works for you, because what works for you may not be what works for somebody else. And you can get great, advice from people and get help and all that. Yes, do all that if necessary, and then make it your own. Because when you make it your own, you make it easy for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to meet all of the parameters that someone else said, but you can take, as they say, take the hay and spit out the straw.
Yeah.
Go with what works for you.
That's
I
right.
love that. Great advice.
Yes. So let's reduce some budget fatigue here by making it easier on ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, look, this has been another good conversation that we've had together. I hope people are, taking this in and they're not letting that budget fatigue stop them from accomplishing their goals. And I enjoyed this with you.
Yeah, me too. So until next time,
we're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on ForBetterAndWorth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.